And I'm going to play a video for you quickly that I think will provide a good kind of starting point to discuss UiPath, RPA, and why it's time to automate.
History is built on turning points, moments when everything changed. Some saw it, most wouldn't, until later. So what now? Like it or not, this is a turning point in work. Do you stay the course, plug some holes in the dam? Or do you face a radical change with radical change and finally make digital transformation work? Your decision in this moment is one you will talk about in years to come. What story will you tell? We think this moment, like all great moments in human history, demands that we answer the only question worth asking. What are we capable of? With robotic process automation, we are limited only by our imagination, which is why airlines, banks, hospitals, manufacturers, insurance companies, the pharmaceutical industry, retailers, transportation, and governments are automating today. Name the problem, the mundane task, the supply chain issue, the back office challenge, the overloaded customer service rep. This isn't some software upgrade or interface. This is hyper-automation, end-to-end automation, harnessing the power of multiple technologies. A turbocharged transformation of how you work. This is about how organizations are not only recovering now, but setting them up to thrive in the future. A world where millions of documents can be read and understood in hours. Where companies can improve distribution by identifying the fastest delivery routes. Alternate supply chains can be identified in seconds. Customer service reps can handle more calls more efficiently with greater customer satisfaction. Where human error is dramatically reduced. And to ensure that if this happens again, businesses keep running, services stay online, companies don't die, and people don't lose their jobs. Because mostly what this is about is people. Not robots replacing humans, but robots empowering humans. Giving people the most valuable thing in business, time. Time to think and thrive and thrill to what's possible. To grow organizations, to help change the world we now live in and move it forward. This new world knocked us to the mat. It's time to stand up. Your employees are waiting. Your customers are waiting. The world is waiting. History is built on turning points. The time is now.
And that was excellent. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of a nice start to what will be now a series of PowerPoint slides. But first of all, a little bit about UiPath. It's been an exciting few years. I've been with the company now almost 3 years. And when I joined, we're just moving out into our headquarters in New York City. We were founded in Romania. The company was not well known, and the category was not. And since then, we've become the fastest growing enterprise software company in history. I'll give you an example. We grew from $1 million to $100 million in annual recurring revenue in about 20 months. It took 4 years, by contrast, for Salesforce.com to make that level of growth. And since then, it's been amazing. It's been great to see over 7,000 customers now, many in the Fortune 500, mid-size, fast-growing, U.S. government agencies, all adopting this technology and loving how this technology is helping drive productivity. And actually, it's proving to actually be the best and fastest route to true digital transformation. I'm most proud of the fact that just earlier, a few weeks ago, we were named to the CNBC Disruptor 50, which only 200 companies have been named to that over the last 7 years. And so of all the accolades that are on this chart, I think that one is the one that I'm most proud of. The company has long had a vision of a robot for every person. This is the idea that you have things that you do every day that are repetitive and mundane, things that you do every day that could require an advisor or an assistant to help you make better decisions, things that could free your time so you could be more creative, more engaged in your work. And we think this vision is on the lines of the vision that Bill Gates first had when in the late 70s, when he said that PC will be in every home and office. I think a robot for every person has that same degree of potential, and certainly the adoption we're seeing so far is tremendous. Every employee at UiPath has many robots and automations that we use. PwC is rolling it out to all their employees, and EY and in large companies, as they see this potential now to help make a worker more productive, make a company, an organization more productive, and ultimately this will separate the winners and the losers. If our founder was here today, he would say this great quote that I often attribute to him, but once the crisis stabilizes that we're in, executives will need to bring the revenue machine back up as fast as possible. At the same time, they'll need to reimagine, reshape, and reinvent their business in order to create long-term value and resiliency. Automation will play a central role in both stages of the recovery. Look, what's been amazing, like many of you, when COVID really started to become a reality in February and March, none of us knew exactly the impacts on our business, the impacts on the economy and others. And the reality has been that COVID has been a gigantic accelerant of our business, as companies had very few tools to turn to actually figure out how to create, solve problems and to go digital. And so it's been a really a fascinating thing to watch during COVID. And we're seeing now that basically what COVID has made is automation is now a boardroom priority. So before COVID, we all talked about going digital. There were many promises on on transferring digitally. There are a lot of technologies, older technologies that require extensive IT and engineering and replatforming, and those took a long time. And digital processes were often thought of in transformation in years, but those days are over now. And during COVID, let me just skip what Gartner says here, because I think that's all actually old data now. During COVID, the impact was tremendous, right? So the ability to respond to cost pressures and focus on preserving revenues, strained resources. We saw this in airlines and customer service centers that were challenged in being able to respond to customer needs, or in the state governments. Before COVID, we really didn't have any state government customers in the U.S. of any scale. Now 12 states have fully deployed. If you're applying for unemployment in New York State, robots are helping make that happen. If you are part of participating in the SNAP program in Georgia, robots are there now helping make that happen. And so the speed of which people have adopted the technology has accelerated during COVID. And again, what we're seeing now entering in the next phase is that, driven by a remote workforce, the need to reskill and upskill, driven by the enormous cost pressures, the uncertainty about what could happen in a second, third, or wave, the ability to be more agile in your supply chain or in how you serve your customers. All of these drivers now are, if you want to impact these drivers in a serious way and make real change in your organization, there are very few technologies that can do this so quickly. And that's really where robotic process automation comes in. I mean, you can implement automations in weeks. You have outcomes are immediate. You can reinvest those outcomes in the bottom line or in R&D and new areas of the business. And because you can add machine learning and AI to those workflows easily and those automations over time, they continue to improve as time goes on. So the outcomes continue to grow as part of this technology. So looking at case studies, this was the first 21 days actually of the crisis, and you can see companies here. The Mater Hospital is the largest hospital in Ireland, and it was a great story on them that was posted in the Wall Street Journal and on the BBC, where they talked about, look, our nurses were struggling to be able to serve all their patients. They had too much data entry to do, entering data in different systems. And with robots, they were able to implement and reduce 3 to 4 hours a day in data entry. So you can imagine the degree to which nurses were happy, because what they want to do is they want to serve their patients, right? And that was transformative at the hospital level. Or you look at the contact centers at United Airlines, or Amazon trying to staff and hire, in this case using robots in HR. All of these are examples of how deploying robots and automations can dramatically make changes and impacts that matter. Things around accelerating clinical trials, whether it's Regeneron here, for example, or We just did a webinar with Takeda Pharmaceutical where they said the exact same benefits, being able to cut down the clinical testing process by a third or a half due to automation. And this is an example of the Wall Street Journal. We're now getting coverage of this technology in the mainstream business, like I mentioned, CNN Live earlier today. Here's the journal's, the homepage of the journal, calling all robots businesses automate the battle against coronavirus. So what's really happening in this next normal then, right, is this sense of urgency is going to continue. I think this quote from McKinsey says it best, and I'll read this one and not the others. But if the pace of the pre-coronavirus world was already fast, the luxury of time now seems to have disappeared completely. Businesses that once mapped digital strategy in 1 to 3 year phases must now scale their initiatives in a matter of days or weeks. And that's why we use this phrase, it's time to automate, right? This sense of urgency. There was one customer of ours out of Florida, World Fuel Services, their Fortune 100. They actually added this year to their board of directors a lady that came from EY, who was an expert in robotic process automation technology within her firm. And on their earnings call in March, the CEO actually said, we wanted to bring someone in with this technology experience at the board level, right? So what's happening here is automation and in particular robotic process automation and AI now are really becoming C-level priorities. They're becoming boardroom issues, and this technology is delivering on the outcomes that people need, and they want. Time to value is the outcome I want to hear over and over and over and over. I don't want projects that are 6 months or a year out to return outcomes, right? Or 2 years, God forbid. We want them we want those outcomes in days or weeks. So we have examples now of customers like a large electronics manufacturer, Schneider Electric, that was able to get their plants faster online faster by using robots to automate the availability of PPE. Personal protective equipment at each of their manufacturing plants. So what happened here? Sometimes people often say, "Wow, is automation going to take jobs?" And yes, automation is involved in the shift of the workforce, and we're involved in the skilling and the upskilling and the reskilling of the workforce. But the reality is that automation has a lot of impacts. It actually helps make a workforce more productive. And in this case, actually get workers back to work quicker. Right? This saves jobs. This restarts revenue. And this is the kind of thinking that the companies are having, worldwide with this technology. Another one is a specialty retailer and franchise. This one targets actually older people. Their stores are in shopping centers all around the U.S. And the reality was they wanted to get their stores back and operating, but in a way that not only was there to help their employees feel safer, but that their customers feel safer as well, right? So they use health screening technology. We have a health screening robot that's available in our marketplace. That data is pulled together. The company-wide can see every morning or when workers come in, the status of their workers. And they can then tell their customers that we have this program in place, that we're, anyone who doesn't meet certain health criteria, they'll stay home. If they don't come in for a few days, we'll check on them. It's really a great thing for employees in this case. And it's a really great thing for customers, and it's helped them get back to business, much quicker. So, a proper automation program, it needs to deliver an enterprise-wide continuous competitive advantage. And this is a slide that, I like to talk about a bit because it's relevant on a couple of axes, right? One is the requirement for resource talent, and the other is the impact on business. And like I mentioned earlier, there are impacts in some cases on certain roles, and it would be dishonest to say that's not happening. But what's really happening on scale, or what we see from our customers who talk openly about these projects in a very high scale way, is that employee engagement and employee excitement, employee productivity is actually what has evolved, and what's actually resulted in the use of robots working alongside of humans. I don't think I have it in my slide deck, but I'm encouraged very much by a hackathon that was run over a weekend, led by the CEO and the Chief Digital Officer at Singtel, which is the large telecom company in Singapore. And they did this hackathon with their existing employees. They said, okay, let's find these ideas of where we can automate to solve problems that you might have that are repetitive, mundane, and generally, in the way of you being able to do, be creative. And the winner of the hackathon, she had been at Singtel for 43 years. A 43-year employee of Singtel won the hackathon, and she was able to automate over that weekend something that took her 3 hours a week, right, for years, right? And it was just an easy example of how her life is better. It's better for Singtel. It's better for their customers. And so you begin to see that the results are very positive on the workers. But the reality is, with automation, over time, as you get greater speed, you scale up your ability to invest in new capabilities. You deliver higher quality, a higher customer experience. I mean, just look at chatbots today. The chatbots that matter are the ones that give you a compelling response when you go to engage them, right? The chatbots that we've all engaged for the last few years, typically they let us down, but they're getting better. And the reality behind almost every chatbot you engage with that's working well is there are robots that run to different systems to get the answers for you, to give you a better, more personalized experience, that goes and gets your billing data, or goes and gets your information out of a customer system, or that's the reality of how the quality of engagement and customer experience is being improved, as an example. And over time, your business then is able to adapt faster, enter maybe new businesses faster, find new ways to serve customers better. And so this is kind of what we see along the kind of continuum of the 5 areas of automation impact. And I probably should source this. I believe this is from this graph is from EY. An example I wanted to show, and this is how substantial the returns are. I think if there's anything on this call, it's important because everybody who's here is interested in business transformation. You're not interested in just doing small things. You want to deliver real substantial ROI, to really help transform an organization. On average, $1 invested in UiPath returns $15 in year one, and there are many examples of it returning $25 or more. And what happens is companies are building millions of hours of digital workforce capacity. They're delivering productivity gains on a per employee basis. They're transferring long-running workflows and processes, and these ultimately translate into more revenue and higher customer experience. One of our telecom customers out of Canada recently said that within the first 4 months of deploying automations within their dispatch area of their workforce, they were able to increase the average number of visits or trips that a dispatch worker goes to a premise, to a residence, or to a commercial account, from 7 to 8. Now imagine what that could mean in terms of being able to serve more customers, doing that with more customers on a single day with the same number of employees, higher customer satisfaction. And that's just the beginning. They have all of these plans on how they're going to be able to enhance the experience, but that was the quick return. On the right side here, this is a large US-based energy company from the South that has been doing RPA for a while. A lot of early adopters really started testing RPA in 2016, 2017, and they've been able to build real large centers of excellence that span the world. They're now building using automation to impact major processes. And so they had this one workflow process that they highlighted recently in a webinar, saying it was an automated complex processing for drilling new oil wells that involved many systems, human approvals, and exception handling. Their team was able to deliver automations to revolutionize this workflow in 5 weeks, which you never hear of in traditional IT. And the business model expectation now at this energy company is that every new robot they deploy, and there's 2 fundamental kinds of robots, one called an attended robot that sits on a desktop and works with you personally, and an unattended robot that sits in the cloud and integrate and runs processes for you, maybe all day or overnight or others. They believe in their calculation that every single attended robot gives them at least $3 million of ROI per year. And you can imagine attended robots being throughout a contact center, for example. And every unattended robot, which handles more complex processes, giving them $10 million in returns over 3 years. Companies have hundreds and thousands of robots, right? We have some that have almost 100,000 robots. Imagine what that return really is. We now have early adopters from 2016 and 17. They're talking about $200 million in ROI they're getting this year from the digital transformation led by robotic process automation. And that is real. It's tremendous, and it's and it's proven now. And the examples go on and on. I won't go into to all the detail. I've given you many examples, but the reality here again is we're no longer in proof point. This is not about POCs. If you haven't started your RPA program and thought about hyper automation, which is the larger category term for end-to-end automation, if you haven't started, you're behind. And you don't want to just go do a few points at proof of concepts now. What you really need to do is leverage the best practices we've already learned from companies across every industry, and you need to go put in place then a center of excellence. You need to get the CFO and controller and the CIO together, and head of shared services, and pull them together and begin to put together a plan for to get you on your journey and get you farther down the path fast. Because if you're not doing this, your competitors are, and we're up to almost 68% of the global Fortune 500. So you can imagine that of the penetration that exists. As I said, we have over 7,000 customers, and I should have mentioned earlier, we're adding 10 new enterprise customers now a day. We have a lot of ways to help you think about automation across your entire enterprise. So again, thanks to now a few years of proof points, customers that have gone enterprise wide, and a lot of analysis and tools that we have in place, we can actually help you figure out within your functions within your company what should be the overall potential from automation. I mean, the goal here really should be, how can you become a fully automated enterprise faster than your competitors? That's got to be the top end goal. I hear now from C-level executives that there's a race now. We often use terms like digital transformation, but to be very clear about it, that's a very vague and broad term. It's been used for years now, right? I'm probably going on 7 or 8 years. What they really want to do is they want to become a fully automated enterprise fast. So you look across your organization. This is an example of a Canadian telecom company from the results that we did in our value engineering organization. And you can see the substantial amount of automation potential, both in the first year in green and total potential in red. So certainly some organizations like finance, the ability to transform finance is substantial with RPA. And that's actually where RPA and hyper automation started first. It was really in finance, because there's so many, manual mundane kind of repetitive tasks at the end of the month end close, or at the end of the quarter end close. So, one CFO of a Fortune 10 told us, she said, if I have any employees in my finance organization that are not doing data-driven analytics, that's RPA. That's hyper automation. And that's how significant you have to think about the transformation. Though today, back office opportunities are substantial, the front office is really where we're seeing the rapid growth now around the customer experience side, customer service side, customer engagement side, field workers, retail workers engaging with robots as part of being able to serve their customers better. So how's it all coming together? I told you RPA, was not well known in 2016, 2017, but the early adopters were the ones that really jumped into it. It's now a mainstream term, as evidenced by CNN covering it this morning. It's got we've got our Gartner Magic Quadrants and our Forrester Waves and others that cover RPA. But what we are focused on at UiPath is a much broader capability set that can help you really achieve kind of the success in end-to-end automation. And end-to-end automation involves thinking about how you can apply AI and machine learning. It involves API integration, not just UI automation, user interface automation, which you do through RPA. It involves the ability to tie the discovery of processes to automate, score them, mine them, record them, and feed that into implementation, to speed implementation. And then they actually take the analytics then and say, how are my robots performing, every day, and what's the business value, and did I meet my goals? And that end-to-end platform for automation we call hyper automation. It's actually a Gartner term as well. We both came out with it last October. Hyper is a very important and relevant term because it's about time to value. And I think if anything is critical right now, and evidenced by in COVID and after COVID, is the need of which to focus on speed and days and weeks to get value, not months and years, as we discussed earlier. So this platform as a whole comes together, and it becomes the ability to help you become a true fully automated enterprise. What's also amazing about RPA is that once you have that workflow automated, right, and you have that first outcome of being able to have the robot do work instead of the human do that work for you and free up that worker, is that you can then think about the profound potential of AI actually impacting that process. One of the best paths, or probably the best path to AI in your business operations, is actually going to be through RPA, because that's where the digital data is and that's where the automation exists. And so we've made it very easy to actually drag and drop and put AI into a workflow. But essentially, this is not a surprise to anyone, right? This kind of evolution of the PC first era, web first, mobile first, cloud first, and now we're talking about AI first, right? And so being able to think about algorithms and digital data growth and computing power at massive scales, that's what this set of technology is able to achieve for you very fast. And so what you want to think about in RPA is, hey, how do I emulate my humans, my workers, take away those mundane and repetitive tasks, free them up to do things more creative, help them make stronger decisions. Generally, these are rules-based tasks. These are rules that what you do. And if you're in a call center and you get an email from a customer, generally they follow rules on how they respond to that customer. And it might take, a day or two or longer. Task management, structured data, kind of definitive tasks are part of where the sweet spot of RPA is. But when you begin to combine, and we've combined AI into our hyperautomation platform, and combined AI to be able to be a part of the robotic process, you then begin to look at documents that are unstructured, looking at handwriting, looking at emails, determining context in an email. Wow, is this customer really upset or marginally upset? That those technologies now have been those kinds of capabilities now are embedded into our platform. Or you might say, well, I'm in, say, the insurance industry, and I want to apply, claims AIs from these really great companies or system integrators. They've got these data scientists. How do I apply their machine learning models, to my workflow? Well, now it's really easy. You essentially basically upload the model into UiPath. It becomes a skill. You drag and drop that skill into a workflow, and voila, you're now turning a rules-based process into an experience-based process. You're now actually improving the ability to make a decision better based on data and experience over time. You're able to look at things that are unstructured, or images or pictures, and determine context of those, right? So now you're assisting humans with thinking, helping them with complex tasks, pattern recognition, and like I said, unstructured and semi-structured data. So this is what we're pulling together all in our single platform for hyperautomation. So to simplify it, if you don't know how the platform works, there are three core components to the platform, and you can download this platform for free on UiPath.com. We've done this for years. We have a full community on there. You can get trained, you can get certified based on your role. If you've got employees, perhaps, that you want to go say, hey, spend the weekend, go learn how to use UiPath. Really, it is that easy with the training online, all free, the ability to download the software. We have customers that started off, with 2 employees over a weekend who solved the problem with UiPath, and they were the biggest hit, and the biggest, the biggest hit in their company, in a week. So that's what makes this platform great. Studio is a design tool, and we've got multiple versions of Studio based on if you're a RPA developer or a citizen developer. Perhaps you don't know concepts like variables, for example. So it's a simpler platform to automate, and a professional version now actually that includes test automation. So you can actually give the more sophisticated developers a much more robust end-to-end RPA plus test automation suite. Orchestrator is the brains. Once you've built your automation Studio, you put it into Orchestrator, you publish it into Orchestrator. That's either in the cloud or you can run that yourself. And with Orchestrator, then you can manage that, and it actually triggers and schedules robots to run that automation. And then it provides the audit trail and the security and the credential management, all the things to ensure that the robot worker is secure, that it is using the right credentials, that everything's audited. One of the things that chief compliance officers love about our technology is that everything's audited. There's no question, and robots do the same exact thing every time, right? There's no such thing as a rogue robot, right? So these are the 3 key components of the platform that we introduced over the last few years. Today, the platform is much, much larger. As I mentioned earlier, we're now investing in a platform for end-to-end hyper-automation, that ability to help business analysts within your company discover the processes. We have a tool called Automation Hub that is awesome, that allows all of your employees to submit automation ideas, score them, and it gamifies the ability to find ideas to help drive productivity in your organization and free up workers. Then there's tools like process mining that will look at processes and find bottlenecks, and will look at the logs of an SAP or Salesforce.com, or watch what's going on a keyboard and figure out kind of where in that process are the bottlenecks that can drive real ROI. Tools that actually will record and capture the task being performed and turn that into a process definition document, or PDD, and turn that into a SAML file, an XAML, which feeds our technology and speeds the ability to implement an automation, for an employee. I mentioned multiple versions of Studio, our designer, the ability to manage the automations with our orchestrator technology, and the ability to add ML models through our AI fabric, and the ability to do all that in the cloud with our automation cloud, which you can do today. Chipotle was a great example of one that wanted to get started right away. They went to UiPath Automation Cloud, and in 2 weeks, their company had automations flowing that were making them more productive. Different kinds of robots I mentioned, attended and unattended earlier. There are also AI robots that execute ML models on GPUs, and testing robots that actually provide the testing of automations in a very efficient way. There's technologies now that help engage a workforce. So our goal is to help, again, a vision of a robot for every person. So if you're a dispatch worker, and if you have dispatch workers, or you have retail workers, or line workers, they can engage and interact with robots. They may not know they're robots doing their work for them, but they can engage with them. And robots now can stop a process, engage a worker anywhere, get the answer back, and continue that process for you. So it's a very sophisticated platform for complex process automation is what's also unfolding. And then Insights is the customized dashboard that in real time all the ROI that's being returned by all of your robotic operations. And I mentioned on the AI front, just to show you, in those phases of discovering processes, in the phases of helping you build and manage, these are examples of where AI has been embedded in our technology sets to help solve, in the case of scientifically identifying automation, to automate, right? So feed the pipeline of automation. That's one of the most important goals of a center of excellence, of your automation center of excellence. Teaching the robots new AI skills, right? Whether you upload a custom AI skill, like the insurance example I gave you, or one around conversational understanding, or being able to look at certain kinds of document types, and then applying those AI algorithms and models at scale. I mentioned Automation Hub. This is a great one to go look online if you're kind of intrigued by the idea of having every one of your workers in your company be able to submit ideas. Automation Hub is an amazing, cloud-based application where all the ideas can be submitted, where an employee can download a capture tool and record what they're doing. It's really fun. It gamifies. Some of our largest customers, like Microsoft, are huge users of Automation Hub. And finally, I just wanted to show you an example. I mentioned earlier that UiPath can be used in really any function, and obviously any industry. Here's just an example in HR. Where you're trying to streamline recruiting. Maybe you're trying to accelerate onboarding because you're a retailer in fast-moving consumer goods, like I mentioned earlier with Amazon or Walmart, and you're looking to improve the processes to help with onboarding, right? And improve your process of how you serve your employees, and you want to then obviously manage the ability to manage your workforce. And these are outcomes that actually came out of one of the companies that I mentioned. Just by deploying robots in the HR function, a 6x increase in throughput for recruiting. Robots actually can look at the resumes, can find and sort through resumes, find the ones that matter, and can go check LinkedIn's. They can do all kinds of validations to make sure the resumes are accurate from different sources, third party or internal. The onboarding speed, a new employee comes on. This is really great. You all know this. When you're a new employee, you're entering same data in multiple places, and often there's an error in one of those places. Robots can do the onboarding for you, take all the data, your data once, put them in all the right systems, manage all that. We've seen outcomes where onboarding processes have been sped up by 80%. Obviously, reducing exceptions and errors is critical, and throttling and managing resources. Look, we can't stress that the post-crisis reality. Speed to transform is of the essence. And if you're a company right now in HR where you are, in a business where you your HR organization is stressed by, the realities of post-COVID. This is an example of how automations can delight and thrill a chief human resources officer. So that's my presentation. Hopefully that gave you a full, inspiring viewpoint on this amazing technology that will both transform your company, but also transform your workforce and delight your workforce.